Hello, I have the lovely Bryan with me. Hello, Bryan. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
I will do, Donna. Yes, thank you. And it's great to see you at last, after seeing you on the screen so many times. Yeah, I'm Bryan Mason. My writing name is Bryan J. Mason because there's another Bryan Mason who writes erotic fiction. Although I'm not bothered about that, I wouldn't mind having his readers, but yeah, there's already another one out there. So I'm Bryan Mason. I'm a bit of a fraud, I have to say, because I know you always have people on who tell you how many books they've written, and they've written 10, 20, God knows how many books they've written. And I've only had one published. And there's a bit of a story behind that, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But I've just had the first novel published last year, Shaking Hands with the Devil, which is a serial killer comedy. At least I think it's funny. And although I wrote it I first drafted it 32 years ago. And so at the time, I was obviously a young man then, or younger, yeah, a lot younger than I am now. And at the time, I was, I'd written this thing, was convinced it was good enough. I was living in London at the time. I had an agent who was, once I got the agent, I thought, well, that's it, I'm made. I've got an agent, she's going to find me a publisher and we'll be, that's it, I'll be life of luxury forevermore. But we didn't get it published all those years ago, and there were all sorts of reasons why it wasn't published. And I was really disheartened. And so I thought, I've been telling people that I thought, well, I'm obviously a failed writer. I better go on and be a failure at something else instead. Which largely I have been. But a few years ago, I dug it out, and every now and again I read the thing again. And a few years ago, I dug it out, read it again, and thought, actually, yeah, I still think this is good. And it's a real shame it didn't get published. So I made some changes, and then I was determined to try one more time to try and get it published. And I thought, if it doesn't work, then that's it. It's gone forever. That dream is gone. But I did manage to get it published. And then I was worried to death about what people would think about it. Was it good enough? Did people like it? Did people hate me because of it? I've been really pleased with the reception. So only this year I've started, only last year rather, I started writing the next one. So it's been a 32-year gap. And when I started writing it, I thought, can I still write a book? Because I did it last time, but I was in my 20s then, and my life was very, very different. So I thought, will I be able to do it again? But yeah, we might talk about that later on. But I'm actually really, really pleased with the next one, and it's going to be, it's going to knock the first one into a cocked hat, hopefully. But that's me. I mean, so I've not been a professional writer. Now I do consider myself a writer, but I'm still having to do other things to make, to make ends meet. So I've done a variety of jobs, mainly in the sort of public sector, but I've done a variety of jobs. So I've done a variety of daft jobs and odd jobs and bits of stuff that paid a little tiny bit of money that supplemented the rest of what I was doing, but wasn't enough. Like acting, did a bit of acting, but I was never gonna be able to afford more than 2 meals a week if I continued acting. So I had to just do that for fun, really. But I've still got some of that in my back pocket.
Awesome. And you're not a fraud, and I will talk to anyone, no matter how many books they've written. And I've been looking forward to speaking to you because I read your book and loved it, as you know, from my blog tour review.
Well, it's a wonderful review. No, my admiration for you is so immense because you do all this. No one's paying you. Presumably, no one's paying you. I didn't pay you. No one's paying you. You're doing it. It's obviously it's your valuable time and your effort, and it's such an incredible service for people who are struggling to get recognition, and even just the satisfaction that someone's going to sit down and read their dreadful book. That's fantastic. And I'm very, very grateful for the review you wrote, and I'm glad that you got the humour and some of the references and stuff that's in there from my weird imagination.
Yeah, that was right up my street. I was chuckling. I study forensics, so I love everything to do with that side of stuff anyway. So I was like, I really enjoyed spotting them. Once I'd got a couple, then I really enjoyed looking for them. And one way you sort of changed, I was like, yeah, that's brilliant. So Shaking Hands with the Devil is a very odd title, I think. And why did you decide to write a comedic crime book? Because it's a very unusual genre.
Yes, and I think I did because I was at the time, and still am now, I was very attracted to true crime. I know it's a bit of a dirty word, often true crime, or two dirty words. But I was very attracted to that macabre world. And I did used to read a lot of true crime books, and I still do to a certain extent. And I just thought what I wanted to do was write a comic novel, first of all, but I wanted to do something that had that aspect to it. And I thought it was unusual. And I thought because of that, there might be interest in it. And it's the sort of thing I like to read as well. I like to read things that are a bit, off the wall, out of left field, a little bit odd, bit quirky. That's what prompted me to do it. I mean, at the time when I've been thinking a lot now about what I was like when I wrote it, and I did things like I lived in London, and I used to volunteer in Highgate Cemetery to do clearing all the weeds and the brambles and stuff. So there's the part of Highgate Cemetery where Karl Marx is buried, but the other side of the road, there was a wild kingdom of fantastic graves and stories. And I used to go and do that, partly because I thought it was a good thing to do, but also because I thought I might find a girlfriend that way. But unfortunately, most of the women I met there weren't really interested in romance. They were a bit weirder than that. But so that's sort of my state of mind when I wrote it. And I knew I wanted to write a killer. I wanted to get this guy in, and I also wanted to tell people who he was right from the outset. I didn't want a whodunit. I didn't want a mystery. The only mystery was, why. Well, eventually, it's why he wants to stop doing it, really. And then he gets, something happens, so he has to either not exactly continue, but he has to keep in that line of work, so to speak.
Yeah, it's unusual actually that he does completely stop, and then for various reasons, like, okay.
Yeah. And I think I think about the ones that stop are probably the ones that get away with it all, because there's lots in the past, and people always wondered, why did the killing stop? Did he die? Did something happen to him? Did he commit suicide? Or were they so frightened of being caught that they didn't put themselves at risk? Or did they just think, as Clifton does, what the hell am I doing this for? What am I getting out of it? Because he does have a few miserable days. He goes around thinking, all I've got to do is live for killing someone tonight, because I actually haven't got any other interests. I haven't got any hobbies. And he does, I don't explain exactly how he gives it up, but there's a time difference, and it gets, he suddenly reappraises his life, and he thinks, so actually that's a bit daft. I'm not doing that anymore. But he's goaded by DCI Dave Hicks, and he's also goaded by the other development, which I won't go into too much detail about, but the other development which forces him back into that world to a certain extent, to get to find out what is actually happening. Is he going mad, or is there somebody else out there? Without giving too much away, which I probably have already, but.
Dave Hicks, is he completely fictional, or is he based on anyone you know? Did you enjoy writing him? Because I want to punch him in the face quite frequently.
Well, yeah, he was very much based on somebody I used to work with. So I used to work with this guy, and I won't obviously say his name because I don't know if he's still around. But I used to work with this guy in London, in this office, and he was an absolute idiot. But I seemed to be the only one who could see that he was an idiot, and that everyone else just used to accept the stupid things he said, and the sort of the daft things he did. And Dave Hicks is bigger than the guy I knew. And the guy I knew didn't have the appetite that Dave has. But he used to say a lot of the things that are in the book, and and some more as well. So I've got some for another time. But he said the most ridiculous things, and my favourites were that when he was on the phone to somebody, he'd say, "Oh, madam, now you have my undevoted attention." And he'd say things, crazy things, like, "It's on the tip of my head," he'd say. "Oh, it's on the tip of my head." And I always pictured him with a big pointy head. But he just used to drive me mad. He was one of those people who just, especially when you work with them day after day, he really got under my skin. And I used to just write down these things he said. And he wasn't, I didn't hate him, but he just irritated the hell out of me. And I wanted to, I just thought he was a great character. And so I've, cranked up quite a bit of it, but some of it have actually sort of toned down some of the, somehow how stupid he was. I thought, I can't make Dave so stupid and so insensitive. I think in an earlier draft, he was a bit more insensitive, and he wasn't, he was a not such a nasty, but he wasn't attractive a figure at all. And I've tried to make Dave a little bit more sympathetic. Sometimes you do feel a bit sorry for him. And there's a scene, when he's with the scuba diving people and they're making fun of him, he's no,
not one.
Well, yeah, but he did irritate me, and so I could picture him, and when I read Dave now, I can picture him, I can see him, because he looked the same as well. He had a bit of a big beard. He did turn up for work one morning with these bright blue glasses, and we're talking about neon blue glasses, and he just used to normally wear a grey suit, white shirt, grey tie, nothing interesting about him at all, appearance. And he turned up, and we said, nice glasses. And he said, "Oh yeah, I hate dull colours." But that's all he ever wore, dull colour. But these things were, they were luminous. And so, so Dave in the book, he does have these bright blue glasses, and they were a big. Well, I don't mention them much, but they were a feature. They were a feature of him.
Yeah, and he was the mummy's boy, wasn't he? Which kind of explains a little bit, maybe, of how he is. But...
Yes, he's a mummy's boy, and his mum's a bit. They do fall out at one stage, but she'll do anything for her Davy, and then she embarrasses him a little bit, but he knows he's also under her thumb. And I think there's a bit I like when I say that, he lived in the same street, but he doesn't live with her because he needed his independence. So he goes to eat at hers 3 times a week. She came over to cook for him 3 times a week. But in his own mind, he thinks, "Oh no, I'm away from mum. Mum's, she doesn't know what I do. I'm too important for that." But he is a bit of a mummy's boy, and she's she's a bit of a sad old case, really, because she thinks the world of this this lump, really, this useless lump.
Yeah. Yeah, and she thinks he does more than he does, I think, as well.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Such a mum
He does.
thing.
He does as well, though. To be true, to be careful to her. He does. He thinks he's better than he is. Obviously, he's one of the greats. He always talks about the greats, Holmes and Holmes and Poirot and Crockett and Tubbs and all those people. Most of them, virtually all of them, are fictional. So.
So you said that you've written book 2. So was it hard to pick up, especially after having written the first draft of that one so long ago, or did you find it not too bad?
No, actually, it's easy really, and it's all flowing. What I did last time is I had an idea in my head of how I wanted the story to go, but not very tied down. Things developed, and I do remember occasionally I got to an end of a chapter and I thought, oh, right, what's going to happen next? But this time I've written more of a storyboard. So I've done a lot of research. It's a different place, same time, exactly the same timeline, but time zone. But it's I've got much more of a storyboard. But as I'm writing it, things are changing. The storyboard I've had to keep changing and changing. Characters have popped in and they've popped out, and stuff is happening. And it's doing exactly what happened last time, when the characters take a life of their own and the situation takes a life of its own and odd things happen. And I think, oh yeah, I'll go with that, see what happens with that. And that's really enjoyable. So I'm trying to crack on with it, but it's just getting the time because I'm working part-time as well. So I'm cracking on, but tomorrow's one of my writing days, so I've got 4 writing days ahead of me after navigating when the boiler man comes to do the boiler.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character, or who's your most fun character to write?
Oh yeah, well, I suppose Dave is fun to write, although he's irritating, and in the new one I'm writing, I've got a character who's not quite fully formed yet, and he's slightly based on somebody I knew, and he's just he's got little foibles, and he's one of the main one is he's incredibly softly spoken, and he's so softly spoken that people are straining to hear, and everyone is leaning forward to hear what he's saying, and he's quite fun because I didn't start writing him like that. That suddenly occurred to me. Oh, I know. I'll base it on that guy when I went to this meeting, and no one could understand what he was saying. But he was very senior, and he looked like he should have a great big loud voice because he was a big guy. But he had this little tiny voice, and the more you leant forward, the quieter he became. So he's quite fun to write. Although I'm running out of adjectives to describe how softly spoken he is, but he's quite fun. But I like all of them really. They do become, even the hideous ones, they become, you're quite fond of them. And Clifton Gentle, my serial killer, I am quite fond of him. I wanted him to get away, or I didn't want him to be badgered by Dave Hicks. So you feel sympathy for him, even though he does these terrible things. You do want to support them. And I was a big fan of the Sopranos TV series, and I always rooted for Tony because no matter what terrible things he did, I thought he was better than the other hoodlums and gangsters, and I wanted him to come out on top. So it's one of those funny things you get. And comic characters are great, but sometimes the others are you need all of them. You need the sad sacks, and you need the ones who are not going to quite make it, and the ones that are overbearing. You need all of these people to sound like people that people recognize, because you don't want some alien that no one can actually identify with. And hopefully people have all seen, they understand these people and they've seen them all. And I think that's one thing I've got from being older writing about it. I've met more weirdos than I did when I was in my late 20s. I've met lots of them. I probably, including myself, I've met lots of these strange people.
Yeah, I work in retail, so
Oh, well, it's full of them.
yeah, just like, well, yeah, just constant stream of weirdos, one after the other. Generally, I've
Yes.
seen all sorts.
I think whether there are more now than there used to be. I mean, I think I put it down to the fact I was asked why, why when I wrote the book, it was seen as a bit too extreme, and that's some of the things we got back from publishers. They said, "Oh, I don't know about this. It's a bit too extreme. We don't like this. We're not sure how it's going to land." But I haven't had that. I've had overwhelmingly good reaction. I've had the odd bit of bad reaction, and partly for people I think if they don't get it, it's not for everybody. I don't expect it's for everybody, but people have interpreted things in that I haven't intended, and that it is based in that period, and values and the way people express themselves was different, and you wouldn't get away with half the things that people did then. So there's sexism and all sorts of other stuff that goes on, but I've left that. That's because it's in the past. It's you can write about it and not be upset by it. But I forgot what your question was. Now I've rambled on. Got myself. Weirdos. That's it. Yeah. No. I think now maybe it's there are more weirdos around, and there's more extreme stuff around. I mean, you go to the cinema and you see something and you think, oh my gosh. I think I went to see a film in the cinema recently, and came out. And as it was starting, it said this is it was a 12 or something, and I thought, oh right, it's a 12. And then at the end of it, I thought, oh my God! In my day, back when I was a young man, that would have been an 18. There was no way that would have been suitable for children. And values have changed and people's behaviours changed, and also I think we allow people to you trust people a bit more than we probably used to. We don't police them as much as we did, and so that's allowed some of these crazy people to come out, I suppose, and to be in the accepted world. And true crime is an area where I think the true crime section was always hidden away in a back room somewhere, that you went in there, you'd look a bit dodgy when you went in to see if you could see the book you wanted. But that's all very much out there now, and well, because of the internet as well, I suppose the internet, it's there. Things are accessible. You can find out anything you want now virtually, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Plus the real world, there's nothing in the real world that you could make up that would be anything fictitious.
Oh, absolutely not. No.
Yeah. What's the most interesting thing you found researching your books?
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, because the book I'm writing at the moment is called An Old Tin Can, and it will be called An Old Tin Can. And it's based in Belfast at the time of the Troubles. So it's exactly the same time as Shaking Hands with the Devil. That was about 1989, 1990. This is exactly the same, 89, 90. And I wanted it there because I've been fascinated by that period of history for quite a while. And I don't come from there, but I've visited lots of times Belfast. And I'm doing lots of research. Hopefully I've almost come to the end of my research, but I've done lots of research about the Troubles and what was going on there, and the individual stories. And so it's some of the strange things that were there. You think of it all as a black and white. There was one side and against the other side, and you might have thought that you would favour one or the other, but there's so much mixing going on. And in my I think what I've been researching is the RUC, the Royal Ulster Constabulary, as it was, the police force. And I've got my new detective. He's not an idiot like Dave was, but he's got things wrong with him. He's got some issues around him. But it's in the police station. I've just got the mix of characters, and there are some who are staunch loyalist Protestants, and others who were Catholics, who were doing what they saw as doing a police job, but there was all this other madness going on around them. And it's how many of those people there were. So I've got a storyline around a couple of those people who are in there, and that's quite fascinating, really. And again, it's based on, it's not just the, I don't want it just to be a typical story. It is more of a cat and mouse, the next one, but you do see the killer earlier on. You don't quite know who he is, and it's really about what his motivation is the issue. And so one of the big themes in it, or the big theme, is identity, and it's also about people. There's a story about adoption. So there's something around adoption, and I've got something of my history involved in that as well. So because I had a part of one of my family was adopted, and then it all went wrong, and there's something similar goes on in this. So there's a bit about the real life stuff that happened there in Northern Ireland in that period, and also things about adoption as well, and the secrecy that was around adoption. I've been a big fan of there's a program called Long Lost Families. That's it, and that's about finding people who were adopted in the past, and I've wound some of that up into it as well. And there's a friend of mine recently who's been going through an exercise trying to find out who her birth parents were. So that's quite fascinating stuff. But I'm not going to have time to put all of this stuff in this one. Some of it that might have to wait for a later one.
Yeah, I know, so many rabbit holes out there for research.
Yes, yeah, and I don't want the book to be too long. I want it to be, my ambition is to be 10 pages shorter than the last one, maybe 20 pages shorter. And if I have a good enough editor, they might make it a lot shorter than that. But
you don't want to go too short.
No. But I don't want it to be a 500 page tome. It's got to be something that looks right, and it's accessible. That's what I want. I want something that people are going to pick up and find they can scoot through it and enjoy it, and it's got a good beginning, middle, and end, and a bit of a few surprises along the way. That's what I'm aiming for.
One of the first things you said was obviously that it was a comedy. Is it hard to write that into it? Is it something that you have to go back and add, or is it something that comes naturally as you're writing?
Yeah, it's a good question, really. Sometimes it flows. The worst thing in the world is trying to write a joke. Sitting down and trying to write, and I've written pantomimes and stuff in the past, and I've written humorous prose and things. And when someone says, "Oh yeah, right, write me a joke about this," there are some people that can do it, but there's not so many. And it all depends. If the inspiration comes, you can get it. I think if you have to force a joke, it's not going to be great. You can think about things, and what I'm doing at the moment is I do get quite serious with the stuff I'm doing at the moment, and it's serious stuff going on. There's terrible things happening, and then I have to consciously remind myself, no, hold on, this is supposed to be a comedy book. Make something a bit more extreme. So it's not so much built around jokes. So hopefully there will be some jokes in there, but it's getting those extreme moments in there. And like I tell you what, without giving anything really away, my guy gets my detective gets posted to Northern Ireland. So he's not from Northern Ireland, and he gets posted, and it's on promotion. So he's really pleased about it, and he's never felt that he quite fits in. So he thought, well, actually, this is not a bad place not to fit in, Northern Ireland. So I go there, and he gets assigned there. And the thing he finds is that the unit he's assigned to, when they call themselves the squad, they deal with crime only. They don't deal with terrorism. They don't deal with the paramilitaries and any of that stuff, because there's a specialist unit to do that. And so they just get crime. And when he starts there, he soon finds out, on the first morning, that there is no crime. There's nothing to do, because the crime is either terrorism or there's other crime, and the bad boys and the paramilitaries, they're dealing with that themselves, with punishment, beatings, whatever. So all he's doing is he's chasing lost pussycats and the odd drunken disorderly, and maybe someone that's nicked a tin of beans from a shop. But that's all they've got. And they've got this great unit, but they've got nothing to do, but they're there because to make it look normal. So, and I think that's, that's a bit of comedy, and they're all frustrated. Well, some of them are frustrated. Some of them are thinking, oh, well, happy days, just sit back and collect my money and we'll just do the crossword and chat. And that's the end of the day. So yeah, there's little things like that. And then you just, I like to crank it up a little bit and then work out how far you can crank it without it becoming unreal, really. So yeah, just that's an example, but it is hard. Sitting there writing a joke, they either come to you or you never get. If someone says write a joke about a fish climbing up a ladder, you won't be able to do it. It's it's too slippery a prospect, I suppose. It's a rung too far, but yeah, you can't do it.
Nice, smooth. What's been one of the most fun scenes that you've written, and what's been one of the most difficult?
Yeah. Well, I suppose thinking of shaking hands with the devil, the fun scene, and the one that I liked a lot was Dave in the supermarket. His mum's ill, so normally she does all of his shopping. She does everything. His shopping, his cleaning, his ironing, his washing, everything. And once she's ill in bed with flu, and he's got the note to go to the supermarket to get all the stuff. And it's just a series of mishaps, and he's all full of importance and terrible things are happening. He first of all, he's told, I think, to go to get all the fruit and veg from the greengrocer, not to the supermarket. She wants it at the greengrocer. She says, oh, a lovely man, Mr. Hanratty's a lovely man. Oh, he's really lovely. And as soon as he turns up, he goes to get the parking space, and this car nips in front of him, and he says, oh, what are you doing? And the bloke says, telling you to F off. And then he says, oh, right, that's it. So when he finally goes in the shop, he suddenly sees this man, and everyone's saying, oh, hello, Mr. Hanratty. And he's thinking, oh, this is the lovely man, Mr. Hanratty. And then, of course, he gets stuff. It all goes wrong. He forgets to buy something. His bag's split. So he has to go back to the car because he's never done it. He doesn't know how to do the logistics. And he has to put his bags down somewhere, goes to get the car, comes back. The bags have been kicked open, and some of the fruit is lying in what looks suspiciously like a yellow liquid, and these u's are running off. So yeah, his series of things there. I really like that scene. It all flowed. I think when I wrote it, it just spilt out, and then I just went back and cranked some bits up and turned other bits down, and then right at the end, while he's leaving the supermarket and things are going wrong as he's leaving, there's stuff dropping out of his bag, and then you're aware that actually at the next aisle there's Clifton Gentle is there watching this man, and it's the only time they've ever come close during that period. So and he doesn't neither of them know who they are, and Clifton doesn't even know he's the policeman. But I was really pleased when I had that bit at the end, that there he is watching him, and it just gives a link to the next chapter. So that was a lovely chapter. The most, did you say most difficult ones to write? Yeah, I think it's the early start, and as I'm doing it now, it's establishing my main character, Harry Epstein, who's a Jewish detective in Northern Ireland, and that's where the title comes from, an old tin can, because there's a phrase, are you a Billy or a Dan or an old tin can? So in other words, are you a Catholic or a Protestant, or are you just anything? And he's the eternal outsider. So he's there, and it was getting him in my head, really, picturing what he looks like. I'm not great at giving tons of description about what people look like, because I think that's up to the reader often to picture. And you can describe people in great detail, and they'll still have another image in mind of what they actually look like. But it was getting him to make him reasonably likable, but also to introduce some of his little mannerisms, his little foibles he's got, without him seeing mad, really. He does things like he's attracted to, and it all comes, I do these things as well, it's madness. He's attracted to doing things that he knows he shouldn't do. I have this terrible urge whenever if I'm going across a bridge or somewhere, I have this urge. I think, oh God, wouldn't it be awful if I reached inside my pocket and threw my phone in the water? And I know, yeah, that's the sort of thing I like to get treatment for, but I've never done it. But there's a terrible temptation to do it. And when I drive, this will put you off ever being in a car with me. I used to be drawn towards a wall. If there's a wall going on an underpass somewhere, I would find myself getting closer and closer to that wall. And Harry does something similar. He's attracted to danger, but he doesn't do it because he gets a thrill out of it. It's just this compulsion he has to do something, like holding his keys over a drain or something, and then letting them, releasing the pressure bit by bit. He just does, and he's thinking, why am I doing that? It's odd, but I feel I've got to do it. It's like a scratch he's got to itch, or an itch he's got to scratch rather. So that was difficult, but I was pleased I got over that bit, and he's there, he's in my head. Hopefully all the way through, and hopefully he'll be in other people's heads, all the way through.
If you were to fictionally kill someone, how would you do it?
If I was to
kill someone, hypothetically, fictionally, if you were a character in a book, how would you?
Oh, that's a good one, that is, isn't it? Because my killer in this one, in the latest one, he just simply stabs people through the heart. It's one quick poof, poof, and it's done. And it's also so different from everything else. Clifton, I don't actually explain how he did it, but I think he mainly throttled people. But I think poison. I think good old-fashioned poison. There's not enough poisoning going on now. There's chemical. There's sort of radiation poisoning, but a good old-fashioned poison, an undetectable poison, is quite a good one, because you can get in, you can get out. You can't leave. You might just leave a tiny bit of physical trace, but I think that's quite a good one. There have been people I've wanted to poison in the past. And I suppose, writing about it, you can picture certain people you wanted bumped off, and you can deal with them. So in my new one, I'm not bumping off people I know, but I'm calling a couple of them after some family members. Not my family, my wife's family. So so I'm doing that partly for shock value, but it also to make them a bit worried, I think.
Hilarious and brave, I think.
But it is that's a good one, though. I mean, we've all thought about it, haven't we? We've all thought about what we might do if you could do it, if you could get away with it. If you could do it, it would be nice and clean, you didn't want to call, unless you wanted to cause someone pain, you just wanted it nice and quick. You can do it. And there are some true crime ones. I remember this who killed the Charles Bravo, who was I think in the end he poisoned himself, but the poison was being used to murder his wife. It's an old Victorian murder in Balham, where I used to live. I used to go and see the house where he lived, and he took some arsenic by mistake. At least that's the theory, that he could have some arsenic by mistake. And he was actually slowly poisoning his wife. And then he took some by mistake and then realized what he'd done. And then she was tried for his murder, but was acquitted. But that's a good one. Murder by poison. It's quite, it's a very typical Agatha Christie type of murder, isn't it? It's slightly more homely, isn't it? Slightly more comfy, cozy sort of murder, really.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the women's choice, isn't it?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Well, because hands off and keeping our hands clean while still.
Yeah. No need to do any hoovering afterwards or cleaning or anything. Yeah.
Indeed. Because
got to get rid of the body. Yeah, you got to get rid of the body.
And if you were to be fictionally killed, who would you want to solve your case?
Oh, that is good. Oh gosh. Well, I think probably my favourite detective is probably is Marlowe, is Philip Marlowe, really, the Raymond Chandler. partly because I loved the movies. It would have to be Humphrey Bogart playing him as well. So Humphrey Bogart playing Philip Marlowe, because he's wisecracking, he's sort of sassy, he can handle himself. He'll get the job done. He will definitely get the job done. And I loved Raymond Chandler. Is so witty and it's so intelligent, and the dialogue is just fantastic. So yeah, I'd go with him, I think. Probably I'm sure he is my favorite detective. He's got it all really. Oh, the ladies like him as well. He's he's got everything going for him. Although Humphrey Bogart in the films didn't look much. He was a little short sort of bloke with sort of funny face, but he just exuded class and sophistication. He was I thought he was brilliant. Yeah, I must go and watch another one soon. and yeah, I've read them all several times, obviously.
What's your most overused word or phrase when you're editing?
My most
overused word or phrase when you're editing?
Yeah, that's terrible, isn't it? Yeah, gosh. There have been lots, and it's sort of thing that you spot. It's ridiculous. You use a phrase, and then you find you've used it in the next paragraph, and you think, how on earth did that happen? And you don't even spot it for the first 2 or 3 times you've read the proofs. I think probably, and it's the real weakness, is I use however, comma, blah blah blah, and it's all right sometimes, but it's I think probably no more than once a chapter, probably not that really. Once every 50 pages you can do however, and it's quite easy because you're talking about something and then you want to switch, but I'm aware of that. However, and I think I find it hard when I'm writing dialogue as well, and I've started experimenting more with putting a dialogue and then another dialogue without saying who said it, because the reader is clever enough to know there's only 2 people in the room and the guy's not talking to himself, but he is talking to somebody else. But sometimes you need to do it, and you need to say it. Somebody might need to say, he said rhetorically, or he said surprise, in surprise, something to get that, to get that drama of the dialogue going. But I possibly do overdo that sometimes as well. And I think certainly I'd go back, if I looked at, Shaking Hands with the Devil now, I would change some of that. But I changed a lot when I was rewriting it anyway. And it got to a stage where I thought, enough, I can't change this anymore. And there are some things I read and thought I wouldn't write that now, but I've got to be true to what was written, so I'll keep it in. Yeah, however, that's the worst. It's not a phrase, but
everyone has different words, and it's always interesting, and usually everyone knows it straight off the top of their head. They know their word.
Yes, yeah. And there are some phrases as well, I'm sure I use, but probably the ones I've used I haven't spotted. I use it all the time. You've got spell checks now, but you haven't got phrase duplicate, repetition check. Perhaps there is one somewhere.
Yeah, maybe. Since you started writing all those years ago to now, what's been your favourite moment?
I think, easily the favourite moment was when I first got a copy of the book in the post. And in fact, the publisher told me the date that it was coming out, and it was going to come out on 30th of September last year. And I thought, all right. And I said to them, when am I going to get copies? And when do I get them? And they said, it will be just after that period. And I thought, well, that's not good enough. I need it then. And then I suddenly noticed, and it's a weird thing, and you might know why they do this, but on Amazon, the publication date was 10 days earlier than the actual publication date was. And I thought, that must be a mistake, because Amazon said, it's available from the 20th of September. And I thought, that can't be right. It's got to be a misprint. They mean 30th. So I thought, well, I'll order one from Amazon. I'll order a physical copy from Amazon. And if it turns up, then it just means I've got, it turns up the same time the others, I've just got another copy and I've paid for it, paid full price for it. But it did arrive. It did arrive about 5 days earlier than the actual publication date. So when the postman came, and I think I had a false alarm because there was something else that came from Amazon that my wife or my son had ordered, and I got very excited about that, but it wasn't it. And when it came, I think opening it up and looking at that physical copy and feeling it, it wasn't anything in particular. It was just looking at it and in disbelief, really, thinking, "Oh my God!" And I did actually get, I did get emotional about it, and I did get teared up. And I didn't go and tell anyone. I just sort of took it off and put it on the desk and then put it beside my bed and thought, "Oh my God." And then I read it. Then the next day or that evening, I read it from cover to cover. So that was, and actually reading it in a proper book, that was easily the best thing. And that was, that probably would never be eclipsed, even if I have to write a book and it won tons of awards and did all this and that and the other. It's that first, just getting that book. I thought, I thought, well, at least I've got one sale, even if I had to buy it myself. I've got one. I can pretend someone else bought it, but I've got one.
Yeah, especially after such a long wait, I suppose, actually makes it all the more special.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And I'd given up. I had given up, Donna. I'd thought that's it. And when I did think about it over the years, I thought, don't be so stupid. Don't be so stupid. That's gone. You've done that. You've made a mistake, really. You've wasted God knows how long. I poured into it, but I did think it's like a gambler. You've got to think, actually, I'm gonna cut my losses now. And I thought I had cut my losses, but I didn't realize I was still an addict, so I had to go back.
Have you made lots of author friends since you started writing?
Yeah, I have a few. Yes, yeah. And the funny thing is, I haven't been a big social media person, so I did have a Facebook account, but when I was getting some advice from people on what I should do, they did say, well, you've got to embrace it. You've got to start embracing that world. So I have gone out more, and Twitter has been a closed book to me, but I've been doing more, and so I am meeting some people. I'm very much a solitary writer, so I don't want to accept advice from anybody, and I don't really want to show anyone anything yet. I've shown some agents and some other publishers, but I don't want to, no one I want to have any real interaction with. But yeah, there have been a few, but I haven't. Yeah, it's an early stage, and I've written stuff in the past where I've written scripts and things, and I've done a double act with someone, and I've co-written, and it's quite hard because you just have to compromise all the time. Sometimes you compromise and you think, oh, actually that was really good, that was a great idea, glad we did that, or I wonder whose idea it was because I said this and he said that, and then I said something else, and then something else came up and we did it that way. I couldn't write a book with anybody else, I don't think. No, it's impossible. But so I've made a few, but not I hope to make a lot more. And if it'd be nice if people think I'm worth getting to know. That would be better, rather than someone to be shunned, someone to be ignored, be embarrassed about.
So the crime writing community are amazing. So that's never going to happen, I wouldn't have thought.
No, and people can be very, very generous, and they can be very giving. And I've had some contacts with people who've done some reviews, and it's been very, very generous. And when I used to do a lot more acting, there are a lot of actors who are very, very generous, and they would give you a lot of help and assistance. But there are some who would rather that you go and fall flat on your face. And there's nothing they would like more. That on stage, particularly, you go on stage and you fall on your face, bang, and you make an absolute idiot of yourself. And the other person, although the scene might be ruined, might be thinking, oh yeah, good. So there are those people around. They're the ones you want to knock off in the books, really. But so there's there is a supportive world out there, and I think in the broadest world there are more generous, nice, warm people, even though often we're writing about terrible things.
Yeah, readers and bloggers and writers generally are just,
Well, it's an amazing world, isn't it? It's an incredible world, and it's a world I didn't know existed. In the scope that it's out there, I just did not appreciate that was there. And in fact, after this one, the next one I'm writing, I shouldn't take it's pretty because it's a good idea, is and it will be in the modern day, and it is there's a killing. There are a series of killings of bloggers, reviewers, and critics. So, but you'll be all right, Donna.
I've been featured in 3 books.
Have you really? Oh gosh.
Yeah, twice I have been sex mad. So I don't really know what that says about me, to be honest.
That's what it says about the person writing it.
Yeah. Once I was a seedy politician that took a few men back to my hotel room.
Oh, right.
And then the second time I was a single mum living in a flat that got into a deal with this debt collector, and I couldn't pay, so I had to have sex with him to pay for my debts.
Oh God. And it was definitely you, was it? It wasn't they didn't say, oh, this by the name. Ah, right. So it wasn't using other things. Yeah.
But it was my name. So yeah.
Oh, right. Oh, that's brilliant. Oh, I like that.
Luckily the third time I was a policewoman, so that was fine. But yeah.
Oh, that's given me a few ideas, because I did like, I love playing with the names in Shaking Hands with the Devil, and there's a lot in there. I did actually toy with getting a glossary at the end to show where they all come from, because there's quite a few, and some place names as well. Some are suggested, and not the whole name. There's one in Mitre Street, I think, and it's Mitre Square where one of the Jack the Ripper murders took place. But little things like that, it gave me some sort of it's quite fun to do, isn't it? So I didn't want to do that with the next one, but I'm going for names that sound like they should be the right names rather than putting people in. But apart from, I've got both my brother-in-laws are in there, and they both get killed.
If you're able to spend a day with any author, dead or alive, who would you like to spend a day with?
Oh, dearie me! Oh, because I've been filling in some Q&As about who my favourite writers have been. It is tough, isn't it? I think at the moment, even though he doesn't write anything like I write, but I'm really I really admire what he does. Is David Peace, who wrote he wrote the Damned United, that was about Leeds, about Brian Clough and Don Revie, and he also wrote another one about Liverpool, about Bill Shankly. But he's also written, he wrote some fantastic books called what were they called, the Red Rose trilogy or quartet, and they were around about the police investigating around about the time of the Yorkshire Ripper, and he writes quite sort of visceral stuff, really. It's quite nasty stuff, but I find it's quite realistic. And he's done these novels based in Japan, and you read them and you think, well, this is a culture completely different from anything I know, but they're often about a murder or a crime. And he sort of bends the rules. He does some things that probably get on an awful lot of people's nerves. He does things like he does repetition. He will use a phrase and he'll use it again and again and again. He does it on purpose rather than make a mistake. And he will repeat certain structures all the way through. And he does these sort of things. And it's almost like music. It's almost like things that Van Morrison does. He repeats a phrase over and over and over again. And he does that sort of messing around. So I think he would be absolutely fascinating, because he's very literary writer, but he is also drawn to the dark side as well. And I'm sure he will be a very interesting person to hang around with, spend a day with. Probably I'd learn a lot.
Yeah, definitely. So when you're not working and you're not writing, what do you like to do with your time?
Well, I do go to theatre a lot, and I do theatre review. I write theatre reviews as well, and that's unpaid. And I got into doing that only about 5 years ago. So I actually went to see something last night, in fact, and I got home. I think what I like going out to see things, and then I like the discipline of writing about it. So I always write them a review when I get home. So it does mean sometimes it's a late night, and it's the last thing you want to do. You get home and think, oh, I've got to write a blooming review now. And I do 500, 600 words. So yeah, it's a page. But I really like that. I like, I think my favorite thing to do is to sit around a dinner table and eat good food and drink good wine at someone's expense. That's the best thing. So yeah, having friends who are good cooks is brilliant. So I like doing that. I do watch sport. I know that you're a Luton Town fan, and I have to admit that I'm a Chelsea fan of long standing. So so we put you to the sword the other week.
Eventually, we kept you on your toes for 80 minutes.
Yeah,
or 78 minutes.
Put you to the sword. So I do have this. I first went to see them when I was 9 years old. So I'm not a Johnny come lately, but so I do like that. Although it is hell watching sport. It's easier when you're there, but watching on the TV is just dreadful. So I swim a lot now. I didn't used to. I used to hate swimming. I thought it was the most boring thing in the world, and you get wet, and then you've got to put your clothes back on afterwards, and you think, God, how long is? And it takes a lot longer to put clothes on after you've been swimming because you've got to dry off, and then you get these socks and they're all a bit wet. But I broke my ankle badly about 3.5 years ago. Really badly, smashed it in 3 places, and I've got 2 pins and 9 pins and 3 pieces of metal in my ankle forever. And I went into a swimming pool after I'd done it, and it was the first time I'd been pain-free, and I thought, oh my God, that's fantastic, because I was not doing any exercise, couldn't do anything. I didn't think I'd walk properly again, and so I joined a swimming club. And I started swimming. So I'm not fast, but I've got a decent style now, because I went and had a couple of swimming lessons, and I thought I hadn't had swimming lessons since I was 11 years old. And so this guy taught me how to do my strokes better. So I really enjoy it, but I don't count how many lengths I do, because I just lose track, and I go off into a world and just do it until I feel I'm tired, and then I get out, and there's a sauna in the place I go to. That's really nice. So I do it. I'm not a big believer in mindfulness, but I think it is a mindful thing I do. I take myself off into another world, and I don't think about anything. All I think about is my breaths I take between my strokes. So that's all I count. And when I get to 5 lengths, I suddenly think, how many lengths have I done? I think, I can't remember. I've lost count. So then I go back to doing the breathing, and it's it just takes me out myself, really. So that's nice. That, and I go to the theatre, going to the cinema, watching a bit of sport, eating too much food, and drinking far too much wine. That's quite nice, isn't it?
Yep, sounds like this.
And I haven't got any dogs. I've got a rabbit. I've got a very elderly rabbit who we got for the kids. We got 2 of them for the kids when they were going through exam stress. So we bought these rabbits, but of course, who looks after the rabbits? It's Muggins. So she's on her last legs now, poor old Bun. But she's a big part of my life, poor old Bun. She could go any day now, but there's nothing quite like the affection from an animal, is there really?
Absolutely not. Yeah, we've had my hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, rabbits.
Yeah, we got through those.
2 budgies. We've had cats. This is our 2nd dog. I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Covered a lot. Yeah.
just losing them that's hard. But
Oh, I
apart from
know,
that,
it's terrible, isn't it? Yeah, they should. Yeah,
yes.
you shouldn't. And you, yeah, when we had them, small animals that died very, they didn't live a long life at all, and we thought, oh, it's quite good for the children to get used to that. But it's been awful. It's a terrible thing to do. Here's your lovely pet. Oh, by the way, it's dead. It's bad enough if a toy gets missing that you got an animal. So yeah, no, it is terrible when they go. But yeah, all you can do is give them a good life, really, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. If you're able to travel to any period of time, either forwards or backwards, where would you go?
Oh gosh, period of time. That's a good one. Well, I think probably perversely, I would like to go to Belfast in 1990, because I've been to Belfast since, and I've recreated lots in my mind, and I've seen lots of, there's tons of archive footage out there, but I think I would quite like to do that. I'd like to put myself in Harry's shoes and see what he's up against. So that would be, and it would be exciting. It's dangerous, but it'd be exciting. Although it's one of these things, one of these myths, because I was reading when I was doing some research, and it said something like 95% of people who lived in Northern Ireland never saw any violence or saw anything like that at all, because it was concentrated in certain areas. People in Belfast would have seen the signs of it, but the chance of actually seeing somebody killed or blown up, they might have seen the aftermath with the stuff in the street. But it's one of those myths. It's like the myth about the Second World War, where everyone was so wonderful and everyone was pulling together, and there was no nastiness, where there was people were being robbed when they went to the air raid shelters, so people were nipping in their houses and nicking their stuff. So it's always that underbelly of bad behaviour I quite like to look at. So as long as I was safe, I'd really be interested in going to Northern Ireland time of the Troubles. As long as I can do I'm quite good at accents, but as long as I could convincingly sound that I wasn't English and I wasn't a member of the security forces who was spying on one side or the other, then I might be all right.
Who's your first celebrity crush?
My first
celebrity crush.
Celebrity crush. Oh God. Well, yeah, that's, oh gosh. I thought I was going to say one, but I thought I might go further back. I was going to say Felicity Kendall at the time of The Good Life in the early 70s, particularly when she used to put on a gruff voice and put glasses on. I like that. But I suppose really way back, it was Valerie Singleton on Blue Peter. I thought she was smashing, Valerie Singleton. I just thought she was neat. She had a sense of humor. She would have been a nice big sister, or and I was probably, I'm talking about when I'm 5 or 6, but I think Valerie would have been the one for me. Yeah,
she's a little lady.
Yeah, she was lovely, wasn't she? Yeah, well, she was alive. I did, when I worked at the BBC briefly. I worked there in Broadcasting House. I used to do a proper job, which wasn't a real job. It was in sound archives. I used to archive recordings and put them on LPs. And then I used to do sound effects, help make sound effects in the studio for dramas. And I saw Valerie Singleton in the staff canteen once, and I wanted to go up and say something to her, but I was absolutely smitten, as you say. And I thought, oh, it's Valerie Singleton. She was a lot older than she was when she was on Blue Peter, but there was an aura around her.
I met Phil Taylor, the darts player, once.
Oh, right.
I've met him twice, actually. And at the time, I was really shy, believe it or not. Most people don't believe it, but I was. And my old boss was really outgoing, loud, always the joker and stuff. He would not go up and say anything to Phil Taylor, even though he loved him. He'd been following his career and stuff. So in the end, I had to go up because I'd already spoke to him and had my picture taken with him and stuff. I was like, please, can you go and speak to my boss because he's too scared to come over and say anything. So he did, you know, he was an amazing man. And so bloke's just weird, I find. You lot are just odd. In the nicest possible way. But yeah, it did make me laugh.
Yes. Yes. And there's been a footballer who I wanted to go and talk to, but I haven't because I've been so in awe of them. But yes.
They're just people too. It's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Although I did, when I went to Harrogate last year, I was sitting having breakfast and Ian Rankin walked past and said good morning, and I was a bit like, oh, okay, hi.
Oh, well, that's good. And he recognised you, did he? Or was he just saying good morning generally?
He was just saying, because there was pretty much just me there on my own. But
I'm sure he'd know who you were, though, wouldn't he? He would know. I
think people are starting to, yeah. I did get recognised when I went to Bloody Scotland and at Harrogate, actually. So, yeah, I think people are starting to. Plus, I've interviewed so many now. So, yeah. But I'd love to interview him. I did sort of ask him, but he's a bit grumpy, so I didn't ask him again. I could ask. I might try again.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. Well, I've read everything. And Rebus is a close number 2, I think, to Philip Marlowe. So although I don't like it that he's so old now, Rebus. And I'm sure that Ian Rankin wishes he hadn't made this promise that he would keep them the same age. But he could always go back and write one as though it was, let's go back to the young Rebus or middle-aged Rebus. Just do another case that he happened to work that he'd forgotten about. So I prefer him. I don't like it when he's wheezing away and he has to go and live on the ground floor because he can't get up to his flat anymore. He certainly couldn't get into a fight with anybody. But yeah, no, he's fascinating, isn't he, Rank? And he does churn them out. My God, and they're always. What I love is that he's always got several different plots going over all the time. So sometimes they don't have to be connected, but there's something else going on, and it makes you think, oh gosh. And it is a page turner because you get to the end of the chapter and you think, I might have to read the next one. Oh, we're talking about this story now, are we? Oh, right, okay. I get to the end of that, and then it's terrible for getting to sleep because you want to stay up again, find out the next bit. But that's part of the job, isn't it?
Are you doing or attending any signing events?
Am I going to any other events?
Any book events or signing events?
Yeah, well, I'm going to the Crime Writers Association meeting in end of April, which is going to be good. So I've obviously not been before. So and I'm not quite sure what to expect. So I'm going to that, and I'm looking forward to going to that. I'm looking forward to making contact with people there as well. And I'm going to Crime Fest it's over my birthday weekend in May. So I've got my ticket for that, and that looks like a lot of fun. I'm doing a book tour at the moment with a virtual book tour with Zulu's book tours. I'll give a plug to that at the moment. So that's really exciting. But what I'm doing now is I'm going to concentrate after I've had this last burst. I'm concentrating on finishing the next book because I've got I want to get I need to get more exposure on the next book really. So I'm looking at I've been talking to one publisher in particular who has given me a lot of encouragement. So I'm very keen. They'd be my number one choice as well. So I'm very keen to do that, and I just really want to. Because I know that Shaking Hands with the Devil isn't going to be a bestseller. It was never going to be a bestseller. It's not for everybody, and I'm a nobody. So I'm starting at such a low base. But I'm putting out there as much as I can, and then I'm making a conscious decision to really concentrate on the next one because I'm about a third through, but I wanted to get the first draft done by the end of May, and so I'm pushed to do that. But the only way to do it is to take some serious time off and start just applying myself. But there's stuff that gets in the way. Like tomorrow I've got the Boiler Man or Boiler Woman coming, and that could take too much time up. And I might be here trying to kill somebody, and then there's the boiler person saying, "Can they fix the thermostat because that's busted?" But I don't get distracted. You know, if there's distractions, you just get through it really. And sometimes it's for the best, because sometimes you might be banging away something and it's all stale. And you look at it the next day and think, oh, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it? So, and there's always a tendency to think, well, it's 8 pages. I can't tear 8 pages up, but you're better off doing that than ploughing on. Although I don't usually have to do it. I usually go back and edit, but yeah. So yeah, a little bit more, but then I'm going to, yeah, I know that I can't keep flogging it. So I'm going to do what I'm doing. It's only been out since September, and it's only really been out, you know, but I've only really started to push it this year. So and just getting my, you know, just getting contacts and hoping that people are going to read it really, because it's a you know, incredible thrill to see it being read. And when I've seen it, the few times I've seen it in a bookshop, that's quite exciting. It's not so exciting when you look in a bookshop and you're looking for it and it's not there, and you think, ah, and you see this other stuff, you think, look at this rubbish here. And I have moved it and put it onto piles. So I have done that. I'm sure lots of authors, and they start off, have done that. So I have moved that. And my local Waterstones were really good. And they allowed me to put a little section. I know when they often have a blurb by the staff, they said, "Will you write it?" And I wrote it. I then stuck that on, and they all went really quickly. But getting them to get another lot in, yeah, it's just it's a distribution problem really. That's the issue, and that's why I want to get, you know, more exposure for the next one.
So once you finish writing this one, do you know what's coming next for you? You said
I think
another one. So
yeah, well, I'm toying very much with this idea, you know, the bloggers, reviewers, murders. So I'm thinking a bit about that. It would mean writing in the present day. So, but I won't write in 1989, 90 forever. And it's got some great attractions because there's no mobile phones. So you don't have something happens. Someone doesn't say, "Oh my, what should I do?" I know, I'll ring, because they can't ring. They go to a phone box and it's been vandalized, or there isn't a phone box. So that's nice. And there's no text to deal with, because you know, I know so much modern stuff. You've got to be realistic. But I think I won't write in the past forever. So I'm toying with doing that. And I've got a couple of other ideas as well. There's years ago, I used to write some children's stuff as well for my kids, with these 2 characters called Mousy and Moosey. And I think I might just knock off a couple of these short stories, Mousy and Moosey stories. Mousy was a mouse, and Moosey was a moose, and they were both a bit. They were a couple of not nasty characters, but they were grumbling, and they were a bit unkind to each other, and they were a bit nasty. And so they're a bit based on what the kids were like when they were little. They were, you know, a couple of horrors. So Mousy and Moosey were a bit based on them. So I might just do a break, do a few Mousy and Moosey stories with a view of maybe having a whole selection of Mousy and Moosey stories, you know, shortish stories, kids stories for naughty kids, and then go back to a murder. But yeah, it's going to be murder. There's no way murder, or it's got to be a really serious crime. But yeah, what else is there? There's, you know, arson. There, I'm not doing any violent stuff really. Nothing really violent happens. You know, there's killings, but you don't describe them in, you know, too much detail really. There's someone's alive, and the next thing they're dead, and there's someone standing next to him holding a hammer. But that's as far as it should go. Yeah, I'm not doing too much. But yeah, definitely murders. There's a lot of stuff out there, and I've got some old, you know, all my old ideas books. I've got lots of snippets of things and characters as well. So it's got to be character based.
awesome. Well, I don't think I have any more questions for you, unless you think there's anything I haven't asked you about that you want to tell us.
Oh no, not really. No, I don't think so. I mean, how did you get into all this in the first place? What did attract you to getting into the reviewing and the blogging?
Like most readers, I guess, I've always read as long as I've been old enough, but it was lockdown.
Oh, right.
I mean, I read anyway. Reading's been my saviour, although I was doing a degree at the time, so that should have been enough of a distraction, but it wasn't. So during the first lockdown, I thought I'd have a look on Facebook and see if there are any more groups for readers. Never thought to look before. I think I was already a member of UK Crime Book Club, but I thought I'd have a look and see if there were more, and there were loads. There's loads of groups. So then I started, I think I started getting review copies. I think I'd seen a request, so I asked, and then that was it. Then I was hooked. I started talking to authors because they were talking about their book, and I'm like, oh, is that such and such a book? Oh, I read that and I really liked it. And then I became friends with a few authors, and then one of them was worried about his second book in a series coming out, that he didn't think it was going to do very well. So I said, well, why don't I interview you? And then you can get seen all over Facebook and it can get shared around. And then over a year later, here I am still doing it.
Well, it's fantastic. I mean, you do such a brilliant, it's such a fantastic thing that you do for people, and it's out of the, it's all the goodness of your own heart. And obviously you enjoy it, but it's it's just tremendous, really. And I just thank you for the time you've put into reading my book, and for all the effort you put in. So it's really appreciated, Donna. So thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. I love it.
Absolute pleasure talking to you.
You too. So just before we go, would you like to, if you've got a copy of your book to hand, to show up?
I have. It's funny you should mention that. I'll tell you what, this was the copy, this was the original copy I got from I bought from Amazon, which the funny thing is, it's slightly bigger than the published one. So you can't, you can see one's just a little bit bigger. It's slightly different. So that's the book, Shaking Hands with the Devil, Bryan J. Mason, cover by a very good friend of mine, who's a graphic designer who'd never designed a book cover before. And I had to say what I wanted. I asked her what I wanted on the cover. So I've got things on there that are in the book. So we've got there's a pair of grey underpants. There's a whip. There's a harpoon. There's a balaclava helmet, some masks, a severed foot, a little explosion down the bottom here, and a bag that looks like it could be a swag bag, but actually it's for body parts. So all of that, and on the back there's a string of sausages, which is one of the things that Dave's particularly keen on. So that's the book. Available from, well, I would love to say it's available from all good bookshops, but you can order it from all good bookshops. Certainly available online in various forms. And I do want to get an audio version out there. So I've got all the permissions. I just need to set myself up with a proper little studio, because I've done a reading of it once before for a friend who said they wanted to read it, but they couldn't be bothered to read it. Would I record it for her? So Muggins recorded it. It took hours. It wasn't brilliant, but she did it while she was decorating. So, but when I've done readings, people have liked it. So my website is www.bryanjmason.com. So I've got readings on there. So if you think you might be interested, there's readings on there. There's stuff on there. There's some reviews. I've got to update it with some other reviews. There's reviews on there, and there's an excerpt. There's a little excerpt, and there's excerpts going on at the moment as well. So there's some excerpts. So if you think you might like to read it, but you're not sure, you don't want to invest the money or the time, then there's some excerpts to read a chapter. So, and if you like it, then fantastic. And if you don't, keep quiet.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been lovely. All right.